3.
Okay. Hello, it's Monday night, August the 9th. And so just kind of an aside, I just wanted to tell you a little sort of story about myself. Today is August the 9th. And those of you who know me know that I lost my son quite a few years ago. And when he was a kid, we would have half birthday parties for him. He was born on February the 9th. On August the 9th, we would have half birthday parties for him because we would read Christopher Robin and he had half birthday parties. So today's kind of a bittersweet day for me. But I'm happy to be here with you. Friday night, I read from the first book of my Walkerville series, and I'm going to read from it a couple more excerpts tonight. It's called Return, and the people who showed up initially for the Walkerville series were Frances and Fiona, and Return, and they're in like a lot of the other books, but Return is about their sort of love story. Francis has come back to Walkerville, and he's been working overseas for a while. He's a model, and his sister Ginny's been taking care of their mom. He found himself back at Ma's. He crept soundlessly into the small cottage, then tiptoed to the bedroom to listen to his mother's breathing. He knew immediately that she was awake and waiting for him. "Francis Seamus Perdue, if that's you, come see me," she commanded. She was winded from speaking so loudly. He pulled up the kitchen stool that was permanently by his mother's bed. She held out a cool, too thin hand for him, and he held it gently, then kissed her brow. "Sorry I woke you," he murmured softly, brushing her forehead. Madeline swept his hand away impatiently. "I've been listening for you. How are the dogs? Did Al have some to walk?" He held her hand. "Actually, Josie asked if I could go pick Fiona up at the bus station. She was supposed to be there by 5:30 and couldn't leave the clinic." His mother smiled. "Fiona. Now, why is she back? I wasn't sorry to see her go. Nothing for her here except to live in her mother's shadow all her life. Martha Janine is bigger than life, or likes to think she is, poor thing." She started to cough and pointed to the water glass. Frances helped her sip some lemon water. "Ah, that's good. Ginny's thoughtful, leaving me that lemon water." She let Frances settle her back down against the soft down pillows, then ordered, "You get yourself a nice girl. You settle down. I want to see you settle before I die. Can you do that for me, son?" Frances squeezed her hand a little too tightly. "Ma, when the right one shows up, I promise I'll settle down. Now enough talk about dying." For as long as he could remember, his mother sometimes scrutinized him like she could see deep inside his head and heart. Madeline's quiet observation did not surprise him. "Well, maybe you've already found her and that's why you feel confused." Francis blew out his breath. "Ma, how do you do that? You've been reading my mind ever since I can remember." She grinned. "Ha! So it is Fiona." "I don't know, Ma. I don't know," he confessed. She patted his hand, smiling contentedly. "Well, give it a go. Don't let anything or anyone get between you two." Francis sat with Madeline for a long time. He heard owls in the apple trees near their little house. He heard the rustling of bat wings as they found their dinner of mosquitoes and other night-flying insects. He smelled the apples that were part of his childhood. He remembered stealing apples from the huge wooden harvest bins up and down the orchards, and he remembered borrowing tractors at midnight with Al and a few other friends, driving them in between the rows of apple trees, leaving trails of their adventures in the early morning sun, and getting into trouble with Al's dad, the foreman for the Montrose family. He knew he was back home for a while. And as much as he didn't want to think of it, there were arrangements to be made for his mother's care. He wanted to make sure Ginny knew how much he appreciated her taking up the slack while he was working abroad. He could count on his sister as he had throughout his life. Ginny, with her huge, kind heart, always did the right thing without complaint, without judgment. He was grateful to be home for a bit, to spend time with Ma and Ginny and her family, his family. And now there was Fiona. Was she going to be part of this equation as well? He could tell by Ma's soft, regular breathing that she was asleep. He covered her up, then went to the front room. The house was in darkness, and he opened the front door, peering outside. The moon was full. Harvesting apples would begin in the next few weeks. The peace in their backyard would be broken by the pickers and the machines that loaded bins on trucks for transport to the coolers. He hoped Ma wouldn't be too bothered by the ruckus. Sitting on the front steps like he had done a million times with Ma in the darkness, listening to her tell him stories about Angus, his father, and how he loved a good drop of whiskey and her and his family. He had a memory of Angus, tall, honey-colored hair like his own, blue eyes that missed nothing, and a heart that kept secrets. He remembered being wrapped in his father's embrace, listening to his parents talk. His mother had said something that had amused his father, and Francis remembered his father's laughter vibrating from deep inside. Francis had felt that all was well in his world. So just some little vignettes, little memories of Francis and his father. This next piece is about Fiona visiting Madeline, Francis's mom. And as I mentioned on Friday, Francis and his mom and sister and family are kind of from the wrong side of the tracks. They're the poor people, you know. They're the working class people. And I have do you see my little kitty here, who's saying, "I want to be part of this," but I'm going to have to take her off. Oh, bye, honey. So, and Fiona's a Montrose, right? She lives in the big house on the hill, and her family has had lots of orchards and lots of money. So, this is a little bit of their story. They walked quietly up the neat walkway to the cottage. At the door, Francis put his finger to his lips, whispering, "I don't know if she's awake. Let's go in, then I'll check." He nodded, and they both tiptoed in as he did the night before. "Francis Seamus Perdue, is that you?" his mother called out from the bedroom as soon as the front door opened. They both blew out their breath and giggled. The voice demanded, "And who've you brought home?" Fiona, lush brown eyes wide open, playfully whispered, "Francis Seamus?" Grinning, he pushed her gently towards the bedroom door. Fiona waited respectfully in the doorway, observing the gentleness and love Francis gave his mother. He leaned in to kiss his mother's forehead. She felt a little warm, he noticed, concern spreading in his body. Looking up, he saw Fiona frowning. She had observed his concern. Smiling at her, he brought over the kitchen chair, indicating that Fiona should sit. Mrs. Perdue was enchanted to see Fiona. "Oh, dear Fiona, so wonderful of you to come see me. It's been so long." Struggling to raise herself up, Francis quickly helped her to sit upright, putting pillows behind her. Fiona took her hand, kissing it. "I'm so glad to see you, Mrs. Perdue. Can I get you anything? Water?" "Oh, what manners you've always had, my dear. And please, it's Madeline to you." "Water would be fine. Francis, can you get me a fresh glass from the kitchen? I want to visit with Fiona here." Francis winked at Fiona, then obeyed his mother. Fiona sat back on the kitchen chair, still holding Madeline's hand. Her forehead warm. Her hand felt cool and dry, the skin papery thin. Madeline peered towards the front door, making sure that Frances was out of earshot. Bending her head, she gestured for Fiona to do the same. Madeline whispered in Fiona's ear, "I haven't got much longer, you know. Frances thinks I won't die. Ginny is prepared. She knows. It'll hit Francis the hardest. He was always such a good boy. He became the man of the house after his dad passed, and he's been so good to us. I'm so glad you've come to your senses and are seeing my boy." Fiona drew her breath in quickly, taken back by Madeline's remark. She tried to slip her hand away while Madeline clung to it. "Oh no, I'm afraid you're mistaken, Mrs. I mean, Madeline. Francis and I are just friends. I mean, we only just ran into each other the other night when he came to pick me up at the bus station when my cousin couldn't make it." Holding Fiona's hand tightly, Madeline whispered urgently, "My boy came back from leaving you last night very confused. You've been on his mind ever since. I would venture to say he's been on yours as well." Exhausted by this exchange, Madeline collapsed back onto the soft pillows that surrounded her. Madeline's eyes, the same blue as her son's, gleamed. Patting Fiona's hand, she whispered, "It'll be fine, Fiona, just fine." Fiona was speechless. She felt as if someone had shone a flashlight into a darkened room. That darkened room was her heart, and the flashlight was Madeline's powerful notion. Could it be that simple? So that's it for tonight. The book is called Return. It's the first one of, let's see, we have 7 out. We're in the process of putting out number 8, and I think there's probably going to be 2 more, so 10 all in total. If you look below on the YouTube page, you'll see an Amazon link to get my books. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you can do it through coffee. And if you want to send me a message, I'd love to hear from you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me and for your support and energy and love. Because, as I mentioned, I'm really sort of pushing the envelope for myself, right? I mean, we all do things that are challenging to us, and this is one of my challenges to myself. So thank you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Bye-bye.